buried scrolls, floating seas, vanished cities, and holy legends. This is not just history, it's a crossroads of faith, survival, and mystery. From the world's oldest city to the lowest point on Earth, few places on the planet blend time, myth, and reality quite like Israel and Palestine. Here, in a land roughly the size of New Jersey, you'll find more UNESCO World Heritage Sites per square kilometer than almost anywhere else on Earth. 3 major religions call this place holy. Empires from Egypt to Rome, from the Ottomans to the British have left their mark on these stones. But what does it take to thrive where empires crumbled and prophets walked? Pack your curiosity, and perhaps a good pair of walking shoes. We're about to journey through 10,000 years of human story, written in stone, carved in cliff faces, and still being told in the bustling markets and quiet monasteries of today. Let's find out what makes this small stretch of Mediterranean coastland one of the most significant places in human history. Jericho, oasis of time and legend. The bus from Jerusalem takes just 45 minutes, but you're traveling back 10,000 years. As you descend 258 meters below sea level into the Jordan Valley, the landscape transforms from Jerusalem's rocky hills to an unexpected green oasis. Welcome to Jericho, quite possibly the world's oldest continuously inhabited city. But let's be clear about what oldest means here. While cities like Damascus and Aleppo make similar claims, Jericho's archaeological evidence stretches back to around 8000 BCE. That's older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids, and honestly, even older than written history itself. When your ancestors were still figuring out agriculture, people here were already building walls, towers, and what archaeologists call the world's first urban settlement. The secret? Well, it's water. In a region where summer temperatures regularly hit 40 degrees Celsius, or 104 degrees Fahrenheit, Jericho sits atop Ain es Sultan, a spring that produces about 1,000 cubic meters of fresh water every single day. The Arabic name Ariha comes from the Hebrew yerik, meaning fragrant, and stepping off that bus you'll understand why. The air carries the scent of dates, oranges, and jasmine, which is a sharp contrast to the arid hills surrounding this 10-square-kilometer oasis. Tel es Sultan, the archaeological mound containing ancient Jericho, rises 21 meters above the surrounding plain. As you walk the wooden boardwalks constructed over the excavations, you're literally looking down into humanity's urban beginnings. The famous walls, yes, those walls from Joshua's biblical account, aren't actually the oldest structures here. Beneath them lie even earlier fortifications, including a stone tower that predates Britain's Stonehenge by 5,000 years. But Jericho isn't stuck in the past. Modern Jericho, administered by the Palestinian Authority since 1994, bustles with about 20,000 residents who've learned to blend ancient rhythms with contemporary life. The best time to visit? Early morning or late afternoon when the desert heat subsides and the golden light makes those date palms glow like torches. A day here costs surprisingly little. Entry to Tel es Sultan runs about 10 shekels or $3, while a traditional Palestinian lunch at one of the local restaurants, think makluba with lamb or fresh hummus with warm pita, will set you back maybe 40 shekels, that's $12. Don't miss the cable car to the Mount of Temptation Monastery, where the view stretches across the Jordan Valley to the mountains of Jordan beyond. But here's an insider tip. Visit the nearby Hisham's Palace, an 8th century Umayyad winter resort that rivals anything built today. The intricate mosaic floors, including the famous Tree of Life with its lion and gazelle, showcase the artistic sophistication that flourished here long before Europe's Renaissance. 23 kilometers south of Jericho, the landscape turns austere. Here, where the Judean desert meets the Dead Sea's western shore, lies one of archaeology's greatest treasures. But in 1947, it was just another place where Bedouin shepherds grazed their goats. Muhammad ed-Dib was chasing a stray animal when he tossed a stone into a cave and heard pottery breaking. What he found inside those clay jars would revolutionize our understanding of ancient Judaism and early Christianity, the Dead Sea Scrolls, manuscripts hidden for nearly 2,000 years in the desert's perfect preservation conditions of low humidity and stable temperatures. Between 1947 and 1956, fragments from over 900 documents emerged from 11 caves around Qumran. These weren't just any ancient texts, they included the oldest known copies of Hebrew Bible books, community rules of the mysterious Essene sect, and documents that bridge the gap between ancient Judaism and early Christianity. Standing at the entrance to Cave 4, where 60% of the scrolls were discovered, you're looking at what archaeologists call the richest manuscript discovery in the Holy Land. The cave itself isn't large, you could probably fit a small classroom inside, but from this modest hollow came texts that scholars are still translating today. The Essenes who lived at Qumran weren't your typical ancient community. These were Jewish separatists who believed the Jerusalem temple had become corrupted. They practiced ritual purity that included daily cold water baths, no small feat when winter temperatures here can drop to near freezing. Their community likely numbered between 150 and 200 people, living in a complex that included dormitories, a scriptorium for copying texts, and those famous ritual baths called mikvot. What strikes me most about Qumran is the intentionality. These people chose the most isolated spot they could find, 13 kilometers from the nearest town, to create their vision of religious purity. Every day they copied sacred texts by hand, believing they were preserving God's word for future generations. They were right. The visitor center here does excellent work contextualizing what you're seeing. Interactive displays let you examine scroll fragments digitally, while air-conditioned galleries provide relief from the desert heat. Entry costs 29 shekels, about $8.50, and you'll want at least 2 hours to properly explore both the ruins and the museum. But here's what most visitors miss. The deeper caves require a moderate hike, but Cave 11, where the famous temple scroll was found, offers spectacular views across the Dead Sea to Jordan's Moab Mountains. Pack water, wear sturdy shoes, and time your visit for early morning when the light illuminates the limestone cliffs in shades of gold and rose. The irony isn't lost on anyone here. These religious extremists, seeking isolation from the world, preserved texts that would eventually reach billions of people. Sometimes the most profound discoveries come from the most unexpected places. Masada, Fortress of No Return. At 4:30 in the morning, while most of the world sleeps, hundreds of hikers begin their ascent up Masada's snake path in darkness. They're following an ancient trail that winds 400 meters up the eastern face of this isolated plateau, racing to reach the summit before sunrise. But they're also retracing the footsteps of some of history's most determined rebels. Masada isn't just another archaeological site, it's Israel's most potent symbol of resistance, where nearly 1,000 Jewish rebels chose death over Roman slavery in 73 CE. But the story begins much earlier, with King Herod the Great, who transformed this natural fortress into one of antiquity's most luxurious palaces. Between 37 and 31 BCE, Herod spent a fortune creating what ancient historian Josephus called a palace incredible for its size and beauty. And standing on the northern edge of the plateau at sunrise, watching the light slowly creep across the Judean desert toward the Dead Sea, you really begin to understand why a paranoid king would choose this seemingly impossible location. Today you have 3 ways to reach Masada's summit. The Snake Path, the original route, takes about 45 to 60 minutes of steady climbing and, honestly, should only be attempted by fit hikers with plenty of water. The cable car, running from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, whisks you up in 3 minutes for 76 shekels, or about $22 round trip. But there's a third option most tourists miss, the Sound and Light Show, available on Tuesday and Thursday evenings from April to October, projects the story onto the mountainside itself. What makes Masada unforgettable isn't just the palace ruins or the tragic history, it's the landscape itself. From the summit you can see the geometric outlines of 8 Roman camps scattered across the desert floor, camps that housed the 15,000 soldiers who besieged this fortress. The siege ramp, still clearly visible after nearly 2,000 years, serves as a permanent reminder that Roman engineering was as relentless as Roman ambition. But here's what Josephus couldn't have known. Masada's story didn't end with Eleazar ben Yair's final speech. Today, Israeli military units swear their oath of service here, declaring Masada shall not fall again. The site draws over 750,000 visitors annually, making it one of Israel's most popular attractions and a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 2001. The best time to visit? Arrive before dawn for the Snake Path hike, or come in late afternoon when the desert heat subsides and the western light transforms the palace ruins into something almost ethereal. Either way, bring more water than you think you need. The desert doesn't forgive unpreparedness. In 483 CE, a young monk named Sabas left the comforts of civilization and walked into the Kidron Valley's most desolate canyon. What he found there, or what found him, would create one of Christianity's most enduring monastic communities. Saba Monastery, built directly into the limestone cliffs 20 kilometers east of Bethlehem, has operated continuously for over 1,500 years. But getting here requires commitment. The winding road from Bethlehem deteriorates from asphalt to gravel to what locals generously call dirt track. Your rental car wasn't designed for this, which explains why most visitors join organized tours or hire local drivers who know which rocks to avoid. The 45-minute journey feels like descending into the Earth's foundations, which, in a way, you are. The monastery clings to the cliff face like a divine accident, its domes and walls seemingly grown from the rock itself. St. Sabas chose this location deliberately, far enough from civilization to ensure isolation, harsh enough to test commitment, beautiful enough to inspire the soul. The Kidron Valley, known in Arabic as Wadi an-Nar or Valley of Fire, channels winter floods and summer heat in equal measure. What makes Mar Saba unique among monastic communities isn't just its age or location, it's the continuity. While other monasteries fell to armies, earthquakes, or changing times, Mar Saba adapted. Persian invasions in 614 CE killed dozens of monks, but survivors rebuilt. The Crusades brought changes, but the monastery endured. Ottoman rule, British mandate, Jordanian occupation, Israeli administration. Through it all, the bells have continued to ring for morning prayers. People ask me why we stay in such difficult place. But difficulty is not obstacle. Difficulty is teacher. When you wake at 3 a.m. for prayer, when you carry water from spring, when you live with only what you need, then you understand what is important. Here's where Mar Saba diverges from modern sensibilities. Women are not permitted inside the monastery walls. This 1500-year-old rule, based on the community's interpretation of Orthodox tradition, remains absolute. Female visitors can view the monastery from a designated tower outside the walls, but the interior remains off-limits. For many contemporary travelers, this creates an ethical dilemma. Do you support tourism to a site that excludes half the population? The community today numbers fewer than 20 monks, mostly Greek Orthodox, ranging in age from their 30s to their 80s. They maintain the monastery's ancient rhythms, prayers at 3 in the morning, manual labor during daylight hours, and simple meals taken in silence. The monastery is largely self-sufficient, with gardens carved into, honestly, impossible cliffside terraces producing olives, grapes, and vegetables. But don't mistake Mar Saba for a museum piece. The monks run a small library containing manuscripts dating back to the 8th century, operate a workshop producing traditional icons, and manage a pilgrimage hostel for male visitors. They've installed solar panels, discreetly hidden from view, and use satellite internet to maintain contact with Orthodox communities worldwide. Visiting requires advance arrangements through the Greek Orthodox Patriarchate in Jerusalem, and even then, access is limited to men only. The best viewing point for all visitors is the Women's Tower, reached by a short hike from the parking area. Bring water, sun protection, and, respect for one of Christianity's oldest continuously operating monasteries. The irony is palpable. In an age of instant communication and constant change, Mar Saba's greatest achievement might be its refusal to modernize completely. Sometimes preservation means saying no to progress. At 430 meters below sea level, you're standing at the lowest accessible point on Earth's surface. The Dead Sea stretches before you like a mirror reflecting the desert sky, its water so dense with minerals that swimming becomes floating, and floating becomes an exercise in physics-defying relaxation. But calling it dead misses the point entirely. This hypersaline lake, fed by the Jordan River and countless smaller streams, has sustained life, industry, and legend for millennia. The ancient Egyptians imported asphalt from its shores for mummification. King Herod built winter palaces nearby. Cleopatra supposedly used Dead Sea minerals for skincare. Though at 33% salinity, modern visitors quickly learn that even tiny cuts sting like fire in this briny soup. The floating sensation is genuinely surreal. With water nearly 10 times saltier than the ocean, buoyancy becomes unavoidable. But the Dead Sea is literally disappearing before our eyes. Water levels drop approximately 1 meter annually, shrinking the lake by roughly 1 square kilometer each year. Since the 1960s, the sea has lost over 1/3 of its surface area. Massive sinkholes, over 7,000 identified so far, pockmark the former shoreline as freshwater dissolves underground salt deposits. The culprits are complex upstream water diversions for agriculture and industry, mineral extraction operations, and climate change. Ain Bokek, the main resort area, offers the most accessible Dead Sea experience. Public beaches charge around 35 shekels, or about $10 for day use, including showers essential for removing the salt coating that forms on your skin. Private hotel beaches cost more but provide better facilities, mud masks, and the kind of service that made this area famous among international spa enthusiasts. The mineral-rich mud, extracted from the lake bottom, contains 26 different minerals including magnesium, calcium, and potassium. Whether it actually improves your skin or just makes you feel pampered, slathering yourself in black Dead Sea mud has become a ritualistic part of visiting. Pro tip: bring old swimwear. The salt and minerals can be tough on fabric and jewelry. But the Negev desert surrounding the Dead Sea tells equally compelling stories of adaptation and survival. This triangular region, comprising 60% of Israel's landmass but only 8% of its population, has been home to some of humanity's most ingenious desert dwellers. The Nabateans, Arab traders who controlled ancient incense routes, built cities here without rivers or reliable rainfall. Their secret? Harvesting every drop of desert precipitation through elaborate systems of channels, cisterns, and terraced fields. Modern Israeli agricultural settlements have borrowed these ancient techniques, using drip irrigation and desalination to make the desert bloom with everything from cherry tomatoes to date palm. Today's Negev, really balances preservation with progress. The region actually hosts cutting-edge solar energy installations, some high-tech agriculture research, and even space simulation facility. But it also protects rare desert ecosystems from the endangered Arabian oryx to migrating birds that follow the Syrian-African Rift Valley flyway. For visitors, the Negev offers experiences ranging from luxury desert camping to challenging hiking trails. Temperatures can, well, exceed 45 degrees Celsius in summer, making spring and autumn the preferred seasons for exploration. In the heart of the Negev, where annual rainfall barely exceeds 100 millimeters and summer temperatures regularly hit 40 degrees Celsius, stand the remains of cities that honestly shouldn't exist. Shivta and Avdat, along with Haluza, Mamshit and Nitsana, represent one of humanity's most impressive victories over environmental impossibility, thriving urban centers built without rivers, lakes, or reliable water sources. The Nabateans who built these cities between the 4th century BCE and 2nd century CE weren't just surviving in the desert, they were prospering. These Arab traders controlled the incense route connecting India and southern Arabia with Mediterranean ports, turning luxury goods into luxury lifestyles in some of Earth's most challenging terrain. Shivta, the best preserved of the Negev cities, reveals the sophistication behind this desert success story. Walking through its limestone streets, past Byzantine churches with intact walls rising 10 meters high, you're seeing urban planning that rivals anything built today. The Nabateans understood something we're only rediscovering: the desert will provide, but only if you work with its rhythms rather than against them. Every building, every street, every courtyard was designed to capture water. The numbers are staggering. Shifta's water system could collect and store over 4,000 cubic meters of rainwater annually, enough to supply a population of nearly 2,000 people plus their livestock. But this wasn't just about survival. The city produced wine, evidenced by numerous wine presses carved into stone floors. Avdat, 65 kilometers northeast of Shivta, tells a similar story with different details. Perched on a hilltop overlooking ancient trade routes, this city served as both commercial hub and fortress. The Romans incorporated it into their empire, adding typical Roman amenities, bathhouses, a theater, and administrative buildings. Later, Byzantine Christians built churches and monasteries, creating a unique architectural fusion of Nabatean engineering, Roman grandeur, and Christian symbolism. But what makes Avdat special isn't just its history, it's the view. From the Acropolis, you can see for dozens of kilometers across the desert, understanding immediately why ancient traders chose this location. On clear days, the Mediterranean Sea is visible to the northwest, while the Dead Sea glimmers to the northeast. Both cities require full-day visits to appreciate properly. Shivta, managed by the Israel Nature and Parks Authority, charges 22 shekels, about $6.50 admission, and provides excellent interpretive trails. The site is completely exposed to desert sun. Avdat, designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2005, offers similar pricing and better facilities, including a visitor center with air conditioning and detailed exhibits. The climb to the Acropolis requires moderate fitness, but the panoramic views reward the effort. So, modern Israel has really embraced Nabatean wisdom. Desert research stations throughout the Negev are using these ancient water harvesting techniques, and they're combining them with contemporary technology. Drip irrigation, desalination, and precision agriculture. These have made Israel a global leader in desert farming, but, the fundamental principles actually trace all the way back to these ruined cities. The lesson here, honestly, goes way beyond archaeology. In an era of climate change and water scarcity, these ancient cities show that, human ingenuity can create abundance even in Earth's most challenging environments. The Nabateans didn't conquer the desert, they partnered with it. And sometimes the oldest solutions are actually the most innovative. Stand on the edge of Maktesh, Ramon, and, wow, your brain just struggles to process the scale. This geological wonder stretches for 40 kilometers in length, 9 kilometers wide, and plunges 500 meters deep. That's roughly the size of New York City carved right into the desert floor. But despite its name and appearance, Ramon Crater wasn't created by an asteroid impact or a volcanic eruption. This is something far stranger. It's an erosion crater, found nowhere else on Earth except Israel's Negev desert and Egypt's Sinai Peninsula. The Hebrew word Maktesh has no direct English translation, and it was actually coined specifically to describe these unique landforms. Geologists around the world, they simply call them Ramon-type craters, acknowledging that Israel's Negev contains the best examples of a phenomenon that really, according to conventional wisdom about erosion patterns, just shouldn't exist. The story begins about 220 million years ago when this entire region lay beneath the Tethys Sea. Layer upon layer of sediment slowly accumulated, got compressed, and eventually fossilized into limestone, sandstone, dolomite, and clay. Then, roughly 5 million years ago, tectonic forces started pushing the entire plateau upward, while water carved deeper and deeper into its surface. What makes Makteshim so unique is their formation process. Instead of external forces carving inward, these craters actually formed from the inside out. Underground streams over time carved through softer rock layers beneath harder limestone caps, creating vast underground chambers. Eventually the limestone collapsed into these voids, and that exposed millions of years of geological history in cross-section. But this isn't just a geology textbook come to life. Ramon Crater pulses with surprising biodiversity. Over 1,000 plant species thrive in its varied microclimates, from desert-adapted succulents on exposed ridges to surprisingly lush vegetation in hidden springs. Ibex navigate impossible cliff faces, while migrating birds use the crater as a rest stop on journeys between Europe and Africa. The town of Mitzpe Ramon, population 5,000, perches literally on the crater's edge. Founded in the 1950s as a highway stop, it has evolved into a desert tourism hub, attracting everyone from geological researchers to stargazing enthusiasts. The light pollution here is virtually non-existent, making it one of Israel's premier astronomical viewing locations. Visitor facilities are excellent but require planning. The Ramon Crater Visitor Center, designed by Israeli architect Zvi Hecker to echo the crater's geological layers, houses interactive exhibits, a 3D film, and Israel's largest geological collection. Entry costs 39 shekels or about $11 for adults, but the real expense is accommodation. Desert lodges and guest houses in Mitzpe Ramon cater primarily to well-heeled eco-tourists. Budget travelers have alternatives. The crater rim offers numerous camping spots with permits from the Israel Nature and Parks Authority, while the nearby alpaca farm provides unique accommodations combining desert lodging with South American camelids, surprisingly well adapted to Negev conditions. The best time to visit? Well, spring, March through May, brings wildflower blooms that transform the desert into an unexpected garden. Winter offers comfortable hiking temperatures, while summer's extreme heat limits exploration to early morning and evening hours. Ramon Crater, it really challenges every assumption about deserts, erosion, and time itself. Standing on its rim at sunset, watching the shadows slowly creep across geological layers that go all the way back to eras when dinosaurs ruled the earth, you realize that honestly, some experiences just cannot be replicated anywhere else on the planet. Long before there was Silicon Valley, there was Copper Valley. Welcome to Timna Park, where 6,000 years of mining history meets some of the Middle East's most spectacular desert scenery. These red sandstone formations, sculpted by wind and water into what seem like impossible shapes, have witnessed everything from Egyptian pharaohs to modern geological research. The park's most famous landmark, Solomon's Pillars, towers 50 meters above the desert floor like a natural cathedral. And, despite the biblical name, these formations actually predate King Solomon by millions of years. The pillars are really the eroded remains of ancient cliff faces carved by flash floods and wind into their current majestic form. But the real story here isn't geological, it's industrial. For over 3 millennia, from 1400 BCE to 400 CE, this valley rang with the sounds of picks, hammers, and smelting furnaces. The ancient Egyptians established the world's first large-scale copper mining operation here, extracting ore from dozens of shafts and processing it in sophisticated furnaces that reached temperatures over 1,200 degrees Celsius. The scale was massive. Archaeologists have identified over 10,000 mining sites throughout the Timna Valley, along with smelting camps, workers' villages, and even hieroglyphic inscriptions left by Egyptian overseers. This wasn't small-scale prospecting. This was ancient heavy industry, producing copper for tools, weapons, and decorative objects throughout the Egyptian Empire. The Egyptian presence left remarkable traces. At the Hathor Temple, built into a natural rock alcove, hieroglyphic inscriptions record the names of pharaohs and mining expeditions. Hathor, goddess of turquoise and mining, was particularly revered here. Her cow-eared image watches over ancient mining shafts where workers once descended into darkness armed only with oil lamps and bronze tools. But Timna's human story extends far beyond Egyptian control. After the pharaohs withdrew around 1150 BCE, other groups continued mining operations. Most remarkably, recent archaeological evidence suggests that the biblical Edomites, traditional enemies of ancient Israel, operated sophisticated smelting facilities here during the 10th to 9th centuries BCE. Exactly when biblical accounts place King Solomon's reign. Today's Timna Park covers 60 square kilometers of protected desert, managed jointly by the Jewish National Fund and Israel Nature and Parks Authority. Entry costs 49 shekels, which is about $14 for adults, making it one of Israel's pricier natural attractions, but honestly, the facilities justify the expense. An excellent visitor center provides historical context, while marked trails lead to major sites with minimal hiking required. The park offers experiences for every interest level. Geology enthusiasts can examine the world's only Timna sandstone formations, which are, characterized by dramatic red and white striping created by ancient wind patterns. And for adventure seekers, there's the chance to explore actual mining shafts, safely modified for tourists, or hike to hidden natural arches that have been carved by centuries of flash floods. Children love the mushroom rocks. They climb them like natural jungle gyms. But adults appreciate the deeper story. These formations took millions of years to create, yet ancient miners modified them in just centuries. It's really a conversation between geological time and human ambition. At the Red Sea's edge sits Eilat, a gateway between continents and a diver's dream. From ancient trade routes to vibrant coral reefs, this modern port bridges empires and ecosystems. Even in the desert, life, finds color. The Sea of Galilee, Israel's largest freshwater lake, is steeped in spiritual history. From walking on water to calming storms, this is where Jesus built his ministry. Capernaum's ruins and Mount Arbel's caves echo the region's sacred legacy. Mount Tabor rises beyond the Galilee, marking the site of the Transfiguration. Its church and sweeping vistas over the Jordan Valley make it both a sacred site and a natural marvel, blending mysticism with majesty. Megiddo, strategically placed on the Via Maris, was fought over for millennia. From pharaohs to Romans, empires clashed here. But its prophecy may outlive its past. This is Armageddon, the biblical ground zero for the final battle. Built by Herod the Great, Caesarea was Rome's answer to imperial ambition, complete with harbors, bathhouses, and a palace. Pontius Pilate ruled from here. Conquered and reclaimed for centuries, its ruins still echo with grandeur. Jaffa, one of the oldest ports in the world, blends history and legend. From Jonah's voyage to Napoleon's campaign, it has seen every kind of traveler. Today, Jaffa's streets brim with culture, art, and echoes of both Arab and Jewish heritage. Once a strip of dunes, Tel Aviv is now Israel's beating heart, where ancient streets meet startup towers. A culinary capital, LGBTQ haven, and UNESCO World Heritage Site, this white city is rewriting the future without forgetting the past. After Jerusalem fell, the Crusaders made Akko their stronghold. Beneath its modern streets lie tunnels, chambers, and ramparts of conquest. But unlike other Crusader cities, Akko endured, thriving under Mamluks, Ottomans, and now as a city of living history. Haifa, on Mount Carmel, is where coexistence lives. Jews, Muslims, Christians, Druze, and Baha'is share this city of innovation and inclusion. The Baha'i gardens, flowing like a green staircase, crown this city of unity and vision. This land isn't just a museum of miracles and ruins, it's alive. From the scrolls buried in caves to the skyscrapers of Tel Aviv, it's a place where faith, resilience, and reinvention never stop. Israel and Palestine aren't just places on a map, they're a living story, ancient, complex, and still unfolding. Thanks for traveling with us.